Hello everybody, welcome to the class. Today we're going to be painting some nice ice cold snow, lovely magical little scene, so I think you're going to enjoy it. Quite a bit of work today. I'm painting on a smaller canvas. I'm going to try something different today. So I've taken a 16 by 20 canvas and I've split it into 4 pieces, and I'm going to be painting on one of those quarters. So it's basically an 8 by 10 canvas. So if you've got a 16 by 20, you can paint it full size. You can paint a bigger painting as well, it doesn't matter. Or if you've got a 9 by 12 canvas, that'll be great to paint along with. Or you can do like I did, just split your 16 by 20 in quarters and paint to 1/4, then it'll be the same size as mine. Alright, snow, lots of painting today, so I better crack on with a little bit of theory that I want to do. Snow forms under the correct temperatures and the correct weather conditions, and it forms little ice crystals. So what happens is those ice crystals form, I think you've probably seen a photo of the snow crystal itself. Little stars, I think it's got eight little, 6 or 8, I can't remember, little star points, very, very pretty under a microscope. Now what happens is, because they're so super light, as they fall down to the earth and they collect at a spot, then they sort of meld together. So what we're going to do now is first just going to take a look, what do we need to do, or what happens when these little ice crystals, these snowflakes, melt together. So because we obviously now need to capture that on the canvas and make it look realistic and alive. So let's go and take a look, what do we need to do there. So let's flip over to here and dump that. Alright. There's a nice old pile of snow. So let's go and zoom in there a little bit. Here at the top you can see quite nicely. You see how loose these little flakes lie on top of each other? Let me see how far I can zoom in without it going too pixely. Very light little flakes. But now as they pack up, so let's zoom back out again. As they pack up, here at the bottom, it's obviously getting heavier and heavier because it's got more and more snow lying on top of it. So these little light, little fluffy flakes gradually become a bit more of a solid mass, a heavier mass. And they could actually start melting together and forming more solid ice. So what also happens is now you've got the sun baking on it, and then they also melt. And as it melts, it first turns to ice, and then eventually it turns to water. Now what happens is, as these flakes fall and they land on each other, and they sort of fuse together. So the first thing that happens is you'll notice that ice, or snow rather, you'll find that there's no hard edges, because they sort of meld together. You can almost sort of think of it in the same sense as a putty. A putty is not going to give you any hard edges. It's going to, unless you physically squeeze it together, it's going to sort of form roundings. So even if I go, let's find I've got a picture with the car tracks here. There it is. Okay, so even if we go over here, you see with these car tracks, I mean, if you zoom out, let's zoom back out again, it seems like hard lines. But now let's zoom further in again. Can you see there, each one of these guys is actually a shading. There's absolutely no hard lines. You get the odd little, even this top edge over here, which is normally a hard line, is got a bit of a rounding to it. And you can see this is a very fresh track. The guy's just driven over this piece of snow here, so that's the one thing you want to do. Then the next thing is these flakes appear white. So we have to deal with snow in the same way as when we're painting white objects. So what you'll do is you'll see because it's white, it's reflecting the sky color. So these gray pieces over here, that's pretty much your sky color. And then obviously it has been shadowed as well. And then the pieces that are in light are picking up the sun color. So let's zoom in here a little bit more. You see there's not really much white. In this case our sun is clearly yellow. So the 99.9% of our snow is not white at all. All you get is these few little sparkly bits, and those sparkly bits are white. Can you see that? So we're not painting white today, and that is obviously one of our big secrets to painting white. No sharp edges and no white. Who would have thought? Alright, I've got one more picky that I do want to show as well. One or two. Right, here's just another one for interest's sake. Here you can see how the ice is packed together, or the snow is packed together a lot more. And you can see how more dense it is. You don't have those light little flakes. It's a lot more dense and packed together, so it's actually in between snow and ice here already. And you can see how it's cracked up. Now honeysuckle is saying this snow is a lot more bluish. That's all got to do with your sky color, honeysuckle. So at sunset, you're not going to have bluish snow. That I promise you. Let's see if we can find a sunset-y kind of a picture. You see how yellow it is over there? And that's because it's either near sunrise that looks more like a sunset, eh? And let's see. Here's one of the lighter sky color, and now here you can nicely see the difference or the correlation between the sky color and the snow. Look at that. They're almost the same, just a few shades darker, eh? Now what you need to remember is your sky color infuses mostly in the shadow side, and then obviously your sun picks up on the highlight side. So your shadows are going to be sky color. Yeah, you can see this guy here is also, it's heading towards a sunset. As you've got almost a bit of pinky oranges in this area over here that it's picking up. Let's see what else is interesting that I can show you before we start painting. Alright, we often want to know how to paint snow that's falling like this. So let's go and have a look. The first thing you need is you need enough contrast to see those snowflakes falling. So if you've got a scene that's say maybe like this, or a scene like this, don't even bother trying to paint snowflakes falling, because you see you've got no contrast. You're going to paint those little snowflakes, but you're not going to see it, so don't even bother. And shut them down again. But a scene like this gives you nice contrast. So in other words, a later time of the day, or when you've got a background like this, a darker background, then you can paint snowflakes. So the first thing you want to do there is, you can use splatter, but if you look carefully you'll see they sort of tend to be out of focus. So what I would do is I would still use splatter, very, very light splatter. But then I would go back and I'd just either lay a kitchen towel over the whole canvas and just rub it, or just very lightly tap it with my finger just to blur those actual dots. So we won't be painting snowflakes that are falling today. So I thought I'll just clue you in on that little secret in advance before I forget. Okay, now when you're doing snow scenes, let's find a typical photo. Yeah, I think let's go for this guy over here. This is now a real typical little scene. Sorry, it's a portrait orientation, so it doesn't show as wide on the screen. Typical little snow photo. All pretty, except it's pretty dull and monotone, don't you agree? So if you had to paint this, it's going to look like you've just done a black and white painting. So it's going to be nice. It's not going to have the wow factor. We need to bring the wow factor into it. And the way we do that is, let's just close a few things here before I overload my poor system, is we add extra sun to the scene. So we will do something like this. You see there? Added those lovely contrasts in by adding extra sun. So if you're taking photos and there is no sun, then when you're painting it, you're going to have to add that sun back, as though the sun is sort of peeping through the clouds. So you'll often, when you're painting snow, have to use your artist's license to jazz up your paintings and liven them up. Alright, another interesting thing we can chat about is when you've got snow in the mountains, because I'm not doing snow in the mountains today. Okay, here's one, lots of snow. Now you notice how misty it is in like in this scene here. So you'll find that generally, because of that cold, you've got all that moisture and stuff in the air. Your atmospheric perspective also tends to exaggerate, and then after it's finished snowing and it's really, really calm, then you'll find it's crystal clear, because now all those snowflakes have washed all the dust and stuff out the air. So you're either going to see really far, really clear, or you're going to see you're really going to lose your distance. So you've got the two extremes there when it's snowing. Here's another scene. You see how super clear the air is? I mean, those back mountains are an absolute crystal clear because of that. There's no more dust and stuff in the air. It's all been washed away, you can say, by the snowflakes. Alright, so now you've had tons of snow and you've got a mountain that looks like this. So again, what you need to do is just, if you haven't got sunlight on it, you're gonna have to jazz those colors up, or it's gonna look absolutely flat like this guy over here. So if you had to try and paint this mountain, it'll look absolutely boring and flat. So you have to increase those contrasts, add some sun. So you're gonna have to look very carefully, like over here. Let's maybe go and just jazz in a few colors just to give you a feel for what you need to do. I didn't plug in my my tablet, so I'm going to have to do it by hand. So let's go and see. So let's maybe say we've got a light bit of a yellowish kind of a color. No, I'd rather not plug in the tablet now, just now it bombs out the computer. So you'd go and add in here, look very carefully, go and find your lightest little areas. I'm doing it very rough with the mouse. These are the kind of areas here that we're going to have to liven up. Those guys there aren't quite as bright, so those there seem to be our brightest ones. And then we're going to have to go duller from there. So let's go and dull these guys down over here, in these areas here. Let's maybe go a little bit duller than that now. So we'll dull these guys down over here in these mid-tony kind of areas like this. I think let's just do sort of one area. And then here in the shadow side, we're going to have to use more the sky color. So you'd sort of go and pick up the sky color like this over here. And let's just go and lighten him up a little bit more. So you're going to basically use something like this. And pop him. Oops. That's not looking good. What's wrong with that color there? Change the setting there. It's coming out a little brighter, this colorized feature, than what it's supposed to. Never mind. I think you're getting the idea. Let's maybe go and make it darker. Let's see what happens. So you're going to darken this guy up, and you can see already how he's starting to liven up. And then what you're going to do is, let's just go and say, I'm just moving this color around here just to make sure I don't have any hard lines and stuff. Then right in the end you'll come back and you'll add a little bit of white, or just off white. So we're going to have that. I'm just going to pick up a really light, something like this, and then we'll add some extra, those last little sparkly highlighty areas in there like that. And that's how you're going to make this guy jazz up and look a lot more interesting. Let's maybe add a little bit more sunsetty colors like that, and then obviously you're going to have to go, and if you do that, because you've done that, you're going to have to go and jazz up the actual sky as well a bit. Otherwise they don't correlate, so you have to bear that in mind too. So you're going to have to add some yellow into the sky too, just to show you that it's more of a sunsetty or a later during the day. If you want to paint something that's sort of midday kind of thing, but the sun is shining, then obviously these yellows that we've got around this area over here, you're going to have to tone them way down to this kind of a color that we had over here. You know, this very, very just off-white type of color. So that's all. That's how you're going to jazz up your colors. Alright, so let me show you what we're going to be painting today. Let's shut them down and go and open him up. So I've got this picture over here. Now what I want to do is I want to show you a little bit more close up how to do the snow as well. So what I've done is I'm actually going to zoom in on this little area over here, and we're going to paint just this little section. So we're going to paint just that little piece over there today. So you see I have cropped it so that it's the correct size for my canvas. What I'll do is I will give you guys the full picture as well. So if you want to go and do your own cropping and stuff, you can do that if you're doing a different size canvas and so on. Alright, so step one is obviously to do some drawing. So what on earth do you draw when you've got essentially a white canvas? In this guy over here, look for your contrasts. So we've got our tree trunks. So we're obviously going to draw in our tree trunks, and you see like places like this over here, and like where we've got this hard shadow, those are the kind of things you're going to draw in. So look for those little changes in contrast. So let's maybe zoom in over here and that little piece there. You see we've got a dark against the light, so you can go and draw in that little contrast line over there very lightly, just enough for you to see what's going on. Alright, so I'm going to zoom way out to like that so we can get the whole picture in the scene, and let's pop that over onto the canvas, which should be there like that. Just something like that. So I'm going to use my watercolor pencil. And I'm going to just really roughly sketch in the tree trunks. And I wouldn't necessarily draw in all these tree trunks, there's so many of them. Let's see if we can maybe zoom in a little bit more. Let's do that. So just remember, if you're drawing with, that I'm sort of zoomed in from here upwards, so just leave that little space open there for the shadows of the trees. So I'm going to draw some in some of the main ones. So I've got that little thickish dude at the back there, and then I've maybe got this guy over here. Now to get this perspective right, you're going to stop these tree trunks at different places. So to show a tree trunk is way at the back, I'm going to stop the bottom of him over there. To show he's a little bit closer, I'll stop him a little further down the canvas. Even closer, further down, and that's how you get your perspective right. So you make them broader and narrower, and make them stop higher up. Or would that be stop or start? Where it comes out the ground. So I suppose that's sort of a start, eh? Okay, we've got that guy, and then here we've got a nice big trunk over here. Now what you need to do is also remember that your trees have got a hangover. They're all a bunch of alcoholics. So don't make them all upright. And if now you've got a whole bunch of little parallel lines. If you do forget, maybe Dennis can zoom in on this area. I know it's not quite as nice and shiny bright when you're drawing with a pencil. And because we're painting white, I can't draw too hard either. You see what I've done? I've just sort of lightly scribbled in on each one of those little tree trunks like that, just so that I can realize which is the negative space, in other words the dark areas, and which is the positive space, the light areas in between. So that just helps me keep my wits about me. So I've got this guy over here, and he comes out and he's got a nice little pile of snow growing up on him there like that, so I'll give him those little angles. Alright, we've got a few little smaller guys, so there's a few guys running out there like that, and yeah, we've got this guy coming out here. So give each one of these little trees his own little unique angle. You know, they could also be they don't have to be perfectly straight either. They could curve a little too. And make a few that overlap. That's always keeps things interesting. So that goes over there. Alright, we've got a bigger tree over here. He also seems to be a little bit more upright. There's a model citizen. I think I'll give him a bit of a hangover anyway. There. And we've got this guy over here. That. What's nice about this is you can really go ahead and just do your own thing. Alright, so let's just zoom out a little bit to make sure we got everything in picture. You can do your own thing and do your own trees. You'll also notice that I'm not going to try and paint every single one of these trees. It's not necessary. I'm just using the picture as a guide, as my inspiration. Alright, so let's go and mix some colors.